Please welcome House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Congressman Joe Kennedy III, and Tory Burch.
Good morning. Okay, so I'm obsessed with politics. I don't know about everyone in the room. I'm sure we all are at the moment. So what better way to have the voices of two parties we all care desperately about? Thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I have questions, and I actually brought cards because I want to get them right. That said, I wanted to ask you a couple questions that I get in almost every interview. The first is, tell me about what you're wearing.
I wish I could tell.
We don't have to go there.
I'd wear Tory Burch, but you don't make nice clothes.
Actually, what I meant to say is it possible to balance being a mom and a career? And so I would like to ask you, is it possible to balance being a dad and a career? And I think it's pretty relevant just based on our conversation.
Yeah. So first off, thank you.
And have you gotten that question before?
More so now, certainly. So first off, thanks for having me, and a privilege and an honor to be with a majority leader as well, Kevin, so thank you. I've got a 2-year-old little girl and a 4-month-old little boy. And the dynamics of obviously being still a pretty new parent, this job used to be the hard part of my day. This job is by far the easiest part of my day. There's no doubt about that. It does, and I've had this conversation with male colleagues and female colleagues. The way that this job is constructed, it makes it so much harder for young female members of Congress to try to find their way through that. And I think if there's any doubt of it, you looked last week that it took until 2018 to have a female member of the Senate be able to bring a baby onto the Senate floor.
Which was history,
right?
in the making.
Right? It shouldn't take that long to be able to get there.
I will tell you, one, yes, thank you so much for having me. And Joe and I happen to be very good friends, but we are of different parties. But there's going to be a Republican Kennedy one day. So. He has this beautiful daughter, Ellie. And when Ellie was born, my wife Judy and I gave her a baby gift. It is a rocking elephant with her name Ellie on it. And the other day, we happened to be on the floor. Now, this is against the rules, so don't put this out. But Lauren FaceTimes him, right? So he answers the phone next to me, and it's in Ellie's room. And Ellie loves this elephant and runs over and rocks on the elephant. And she comes to the office, and she makes the elephant noises. This is going to be the first Kennedy I support for president. But how do you cope? I will tell you, Joe will come to me and say, are we going to get out at this time? Because I've got to get home. Something broke in the house, or the kids need something, or he had a big snowstorm. He said, I can't come back. It is a challenging part. And it's true about what happened in the Senate, but I'll give you a little point about in the House. It's the basic things people don't think about. So in the House chambers, you're working, and when we had taken over the majority, there's a men's bathroom right outside the chambers. The women would have to walk all the way back, and there's no way they were going to get back there in time. But the other area directly across where the women's bathroom should be was like the speaker's room or something. So I give credit to John Boehner. The day he became speaker, he took that away and made it a women's bathroom. And so from the question, you never think about just being able to serve in Congress, get some other place, and get back. It's those things that are changing, yes.
Well, it's great to hear that. I'm going to read these questions. They're a little long-winded. I might ad-lib a bit, I told you. But I want to get them right because there's an unprecedented number of women running for office this year, which likely means, hopefully, there'll be more women elected to office. So what differences do you think we can expect to see as women come closer to equal representation in legislative bodies? Will we see more bipartisanship, which I'm sure I can say for everyone we hope, more compromise? How does the conversation change when there are more women present to participate in it?
So let's certainly hope for more compromise. One that I think all of us can agree on would be a good thing. Look, I think the important part that, as I look at those stats, and I've met a number of some incredible candidates across the country, is that Congress slowly, but hopefully will take a big step forward, is starting to reflect the lived experience of the American public, right? A couple of stats for you. 1967, 10% of women were the major breadwinners for families. Today it's 42%, and another 22% are co-breadwinners, right? The fact that we still have such underrepresentation in the House of Representatives means that a number of these family-oriented policies just don't get the focus or attention that they perhaps should. And I think when I look at the prospect of more women running for office, it's going to be folks that are confronting some of these challenges that families are facing around the country, that particularly with the generational change too, which I think what this means, that hopefully will update some of those conversations and the need to address some of these concerns that we just, as a government, haven't done.
I think it's fantastic more women are running. They make up 53% of the electorate. They should reflect, our country should reflect the makeup of our country within Congress. But will that change the outcome of Congress? I mean, there are women today that I serve a majority leader. They're in leadership roles. They negotiate agreements. Women are not going to change their principles. They're great negotiators, but also they don't give up their principles for the sake of just coming to an agreement. We don't have differences because we have parties. We have parties because we have differences. And the misnomer here is we won't change the divide in America because something happens in Congress. Congress is a microcosm of America. Tonight you'll go home and you all have different philosophical opinions, but you'll watch your news from a network that's probably giving opinion, not news, philosophically about what happened, and it'll drive the divide further. Most people think the things that come out of Congress are all partisan. Like, we serve in the House. There's more than 400 bills that have passed the House that are sitting in the Senate. And you would think, oh, I bet those are all partisan. Republican are in the majority. Only 5 of those bills are partisan. Every other bill in that, of those 400, have somebody from both parties voting for it. But more than half of them have come out with 100% from his party and 100% from my party passing the House. The challenge is we focus on what divides us instead of what unites us. And we take these opinions where today we get so angry that somebody has a difference of opinion. We philosophically are different, but if I go to Massachusetts, I go to dinner with him and Lauren. He doesn't advertise it because I don't want to get him in trouble, but we're friends, but we can argue on the floor differently from the prospect. Look, we have a government that's designed to have compromise. Washington, D.C. is our capital. It was based to be our capital because Hamilton created our banking system and got a compromise to put the capital there. But we expect as Americans to get 100% of what we want. That's not the way we work. I do not expect him to give up his principles, and I'm not going to give up mine. But I'm going to try to find common ground where we can both have a win. And the challenge is, when we have those wins where we both come to agreement, both parties criticize it, that you gave up too much. And that's a reflection of what America is saying to us. So I think we have to almost take a deep breath back. We can campaign as hard as we want, but then when the election's over, let's work towards one common goal.
I like the deep breath, and I think America's ready for some unity, is my feeling. I think it's time, and I think as we continue to be divisive, things need to come together. And as leaders, 2 people on the stage, you 2 can better make that happen than anyone. So that's exciting, and you both are coming from the same perspective, not the same ideology, the same perspective of unity.
So, look, if you're a member of Congress these days on the front lines of these discussions and debates, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find, you might find some, but that don't want the system to work better. And I think regardless as to your political perspective on this, a conservative right is angry because they've got control of government and they haven't been able to deliver on all of their desires.
That's because of the Senate Democrats.
Right, yes, of course. You've got a progressive left that is angry and upset and scared for the Republican leadership that we are seeing. That doesn't necessarily reflect some of our priorities. And you've got a center that is stepping back saying, you guys are nuts. But regardless, nobody in that system is happy. And trying to create the space to actually have more of that discussion and dialogue, I think would be helpful. I think there's some structural concerns there. My own issue, campaign finance reform and nonpartisan redistricting, that would help incentivize that compromise rather than incentivize the drive to the extreme.
I believe that we can find common ground, but what happens I watch leaders on both sides, and I'll give you a little perspective from behind the scenes. There will be an agreement on the table, but remember, we make policy in the world of politics. Sometimes politics will get played a little harder where someone will say, I could have agreed to that last year, but I can't agree to it now because it's getting too close to the election. And that's a difficulty because the party is pulling them away and punishing them if they come to that agreement. But look, Winston Churchill had it right. You can always count on Americans to do it right after they exhausted every other option.
Well, we're almost there.
Yeah.
Now's the time. I have to say, I'm personally exhausted, and I'm ready for some sleep. After the 2016 election, there's been a lot of conversation about how voters respond to ambitious women. Obviously, it takes ambition to run for office and ask people to vote for you. But studies show that people respond to ambitious men and ambitious women differently. Ambitious men are seen as assertive and strong. No surprise. Ambitious women are seen as uncaring and less trustworthy. How do you think our perceptions about ambition, hold on one sec, I want to get it exactly right, women and ambition played out in this election? And will it be difficult for a woman to be elected with this bias?
I'll go first. I find if I take my policy hat and I put my political hat on and I'm watching races, I have found in the statistics, it is true, women will get attacked more from that perspective, but it's not from men. Women judge women in a lot of these perspectives and some of this much harder. Now, if you take it from the election, I don't think that caused the outcome of the last presidential. Because I don't believe the ambition stopped Hillary Clinton from being Senator of New York. I don't think ambition stopped her from being Secretary of State. And I do believe a woman will be elected President of the United States. And I'm very excited that hopefully that's a Republican first. But it will be on her merit. Now, I will tell you this. The highest ranking woman staffer in Congress is my chief of staff. I did not hire her because she was a woman. She was the very best person from the job. And you know what I admired about? She had ambition. So it's our own perspective of what we look for. I will tell you that there was a race, I won't give you the names because you probably figured it out, between a man and a woman in a leadership position in Congress. The man lost because the number one thing people told me, he was too ambitious. It's what your ambition's for. If your ambition is for helping others, or is your ambition for helping yourself? I think that is when ambition works against you. That is what you have to look at. If somebody's ambitious to change the country for the good, I'm right behind you. But if your ambition just for you to move up and make your life better, I'm not buying it.
And people are smart, and I'm going to let you speak, but the only thing I beg to differ on is I do think women are attacked by women for sure, but I really think they're attacked by men. And
no, I don't disagree with your statement, but what I have found in elections, and the most difficult part for a woman to get to that final elected position is getting through a primary. And when you look at the statistics inside a primary, it's a party to a party, right? Because it's usually closed primaries. I find it's women judgmental to other women in that
and
elected.
That needs to change.
That's a challenge, yes.
Yes.
So the only thing I agree with largely with what the majority leader said, and I agree, obviously, Tory, with what you said too. I think undeniable that women candidates face a level of scrutiny that men don't. I know that one of the themes of this summit is on unconscious bias. I think it's critical to examine that. I also think, going a step forward on that, part of that just isn't unconscious. It's just ignored, right? It's this idea that, and it happens myriad times in our society every single day, where you take these cues from neighbors, friends, just the culture of the environment that you're in, where it seems to be okay to comment on what you're wearing. It seems to be okay to hold men and women to different standards, particularly in a political arena. It's the criticism that the First Lady received for wearing high heels when she boarded Air Force One down to Texas after the recovery of Hurricane Harvey. Give me a break, right? That had nothing to do with anything, yet that was the criticism. And so I don't think we can ignore the fact that that's there. I think acknowledging the unconscious part of it is critical. I also think that there's part of it that unfortunately isn't really unconscious, but just gets reinforced because people aren't held accountable for those statements, comments, actions. And finally, I think social media makes it worse because the level of accountability is divorced even further on Twitter and Facebook and these other media.
That's a whole nother conversation
Yeah,
we
agreed.
do not have time for. But yes, I totally agree. I mean, Kevin said something backstage, which I thought was very interesting. We were talking about women and their issues. And I would say my number one issue is national security. And you would say that's not the case what women generally who run for politics stand for, or what people's perception of them is
It was interesting. I was listening to this speaker two before, Dr. Is it Greenway? When women come into Congress, people would have stereotypes. Oh, this new congressperson probably only wants to serve on education or deal with health care.
which are all important.
Well, they're very important, but we're stereotyping somebody, right?
Right.
I mean, I met last night Yasmin. She's only going to care about national security. Or someone's only going to care. I look at the women who I currently serve with, a Kristi Noem who's running for governor. She cares about the farm bill and she cares about taxes. Her father died when she was young, and government came after her for inheritance and had to save the farm. She had to quit college, right? I mean, it's our personal perspective of what we dealt with. We don't know what they've gone through, the individual, when they come to Congress. But when a man gets elected to Congress, do we have preconceived notion of what committees they want to serve on? So from that part, it made me look at it. And I've looked at, if I just take statistics going down, national security is a very top issue for married women because they're caring about the security of their family, what the verbatims that you get back.
But does it have to be instead of healthcare? Like healthcare is
it could be all of it.
That's what I was saying. I mean, for me, healthcare is as important as national security, but I understand your stereotypes of people's perceptions.
Again, I agree. I think there's part of that issue might just be the way that the House of Representatives works. We have to know a little bit about a lot of things. Some would argue we only know a little bit about a lot of things. You got to know a little bit about a lot of things, but then you have to prioritize. You got 435 colleagues and you serve on certain committees, and so you do a deep dive on 2 or 3 issues. And so it's not that people don't care. I serve on one of the committees that oversees our healthcare system. I care deeply about healthcare, mental health, Medicaid. It's not that I don't care about national security. I do. It's just that I'm going to spend most of my time, given the responsibilities of my job, on healthcare. And I do think, look, the broader point here is that the roles in our society are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And Congress, again, I think for some structural issues, is struggling to keep up with that. We have a chance now, and I don't think this is necessarily partisan, to actually make this leap forward. Because I'll tell you, the younger members of Congress, the dynamics that they have within their families, their gender roles are very different than folks that are in their late 60s and 70s. That's because their lived experiences are very different today.
And that's young for the Senate.
So we've got a chance to reset this, and women are going to be a big piece of that because of, again, I think that lived experience that's changed.
Well, I don't want to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we do. But one thing I found out about these two is they work out together. So I was like,
I'm the
okay, what
before
does
guy,
that
he's the
workout look like? you work out together, that means you can bring the country together. And that's my hope. So thank you.
Thank you.